There it goes. He's off and running.
Clapper, it's official. Whenever the clapper goes off.
What number is this one?
128. Episode
Nice.
128.
Yeah, that's not.
I've got to write it on there one of these days, but the damn dry erase boards, they don't really erase.
Yeah, they're not living up to the billing. A lot like a lot of things in life.
Exactly. Well, welcome to the Rebel's Edge, folks. He's Pete Najarian. I'm John Najarian. We've got Mr. Gronkowski working the boards today and putting up the visuals and so forth, the clock. Mm-hmm. With all that said, let's dive in, shall we, Pete, to the Macro Minute?
Let's do it.
Macro Minute. We're not going to waste your time. I'm going to say, Pete, that the banking regulators who did such a stellar job with Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, well, they are before the Senate Banking Committee today. So we've got idiots on one side regulating the idiots on the other side.
So
that's my Macro Minute.
So in other words, what he's saying, guys, is there's idiots on both sides. There might be some interesting stuff that comes out of this. I'm going to just hit real quick that the Asian markets, John, I just saw this stat today, and it was interesting to me when you look at what's going on in the Asian markets, the fact that they're running away from risk. And what I mean by that is private equities, the deals were down 44% in 2022. And I'm pretty sure that that's actually flowing into 2023 as well. So that's something that we have to be a little bit concerned about as well. I think we'll get over it, but that is something that's definitely impacting, I think, our markets.
I would agree. That will impact markets, Pete, because if they're not buying into venture or buying into stocks or bonds, any of that could cause some of those areas to not be as robust.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dive into fantastic futures.
Yes.
Our friends over at the CME, Pete, say that these soybean futures are basically down 12% year to date, which means that the edamame that Pete gets whenever he goes out to the Japanese restaurants and so forth,
love it.
They're down.
Well, you know what's not down, John? Take a look at the price of silver since March 8th to March 28th. So obviously 20 days, call it 3 weeks if you want. It's gone from $20, and actually it was a little bit lower than that, to 23, call it 23.30, 23.35. That doesn't sound like a huge, but it is. Keep in mind, I mean, that is a nice big move to the upside. You've been talking about silver, John, over the last few weeks. And I'll tell you what, we're seeing a very nice, strong move. We talk about gold all the time. We talk about a lot of different commodities. Oftentimes, silver is kind of kicked to the side. Don't kick it to the side. It's on the move, and it continues to be on the move. And there's some options being traded out there in some of the products out there in the silver world.
Yeah, I love silver still, Pete. I'm in the SLV, and I'm in HL as well as GDX and GLD. HL is mainly gold. GDX is gold miners. GLD is gold itself as an ETF. All right, let's dive into Alibaba, Pete, because it was up 5%, 8%. Now it's up 12%. Believe it or not, they're planning on splitting the company into 6 main units, and they're going to IPO several of those. At least that's what they're talking about. So people are saying, wow, they're going to unlock a lot of value here. I'm not so sure about that, but nonetheless, we'd be remiss if we weren't at least addressing it.
Well, John, I'll tell you this. The volumes are outrageous. If you look at BABA today compared to normal, what its average normal trading is, it is absolutely off the charts. So in a market that's been a lot quieter, the last few days in the markets, we've seen a little bit of a pullback. Matter of fact, only 35 million contracts in the options world were trading just yesterday. So that's about 10 million or maybe even more than that short. The one thing I'll say about Alibaba, John, in this split, and we're talking about a lot of different companies talking about splitting. Disney's talking about splitting into maybe 3 different companies, so to speak. And then you look over at this, maybe 6 companies. I'll tell you what, when you look at the mountain of cash that these guys have at Alibaba, John, $500 billion, and then you look at their free cash flow, $42 billion. These guys, when they separate into six, they're still going to be massive, and it's going to be very interesting. And we'll find out how much the Chinese government wants to know what the data is, because that has been an issue for quite some time for Baba. But I'll tell you what, today that stock is absolutely ripping to the upside.
Well, Pete, we had unusual activity 4 days ago, the 24th of March. It's 28th day, of course, and they were buying the 89 strike calls that expire this coming Friday. So they only paid about $1.80 for those calls, Pete. I'll be putting that out on Twitter in just a bit, but oh my, those with the stock trading today, with Alibaba moving all the way up. Let's see, the high print of the day is right where we're at, Pete, $98.11. Gives you an idea of somebody made a nice 4x return on that trade. That's not a bad way to go into a Tuesday, is it?
It's a good start to the week.
So is this, by the way, Viking Therapeutics. Positive phase 1 results. They're doing clinical trials and so forth for some of their metabolic, I'll put that in quotes, Pete. It basically means they have an obesity treatment. And a lot of people in Hollywood are on some form of an obesity drug right now, Pete, because people can't just go out and exercise and stop eating. They want a drug. And God knows what the side effects might be on some of these. And I'm not trying to throw shade at Viking Therapeutics, VKTX, but I am saying that you don't want to mess with Mother Nature. I don't know that you want to take a pill or a shot that basically allows you to be back skinny again. I'm thinking that doesn't end so well, Pete. I've seen some of those movies.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up. I'll throw this out at you just out of left field, but this is not good for Peloton. We talk about Peloton all the time being a great clothes hanger. Well, you know, if you don't have to exercise, John, well, I guess why are you going to get on your Peloton bike? Who needs that damn thing? You know what, John? It is phase 1. It's awful early. So to see the reaction that we're seeing is pretty interesting. Yes, they're doing a little bit better than the placebo. That's pretty great. What I do like is this. When you look at their balance sheet, John, as opposed to many biotechs, their balance sheet actually looks pretty good. They've got a little bit of short interest. I think that's part of what's pushing this thing higher as well. It's about 6 or 7% on the short side, but they do have a decent balance sheet, and the cash burn is not that bad. But folks, remember this. It is phase 1, and that is a long ways from getting to the commercial side of things. So I know people are excited about this, but I think you do have to at least understand how the process works. Understand this is going out into the future pretty far. This is not happening tomorrow.
And it's trading at the high of the day, Pete. It was initially up 40%. It opened at 1231, which was, I think, a 30 some odd percent gain. Right now, it's up 65%, trading 1505. And they just came in, Pete, and bought a lot of April 15 calls, according to our heat seekers. So, wow, upside play there in Viking Therapeutics. All right, let's talk about PHV, Pete. This one, it's kind of an owner of Tommy Hilfiger, I think North Face, and a whole bunch of brands. And they reported earnings that were much better than expected, both on top line, which is the revenue, and bottom line, which is profit. So, wow, everything from Calvin Klein and Hilfiger, Pete, profits look pretty good at PHV.
Yeah, PVH. But anyway, yes,
PVH.
This thing is absolutely on fire. When you look at those numbers, to your point, John, the earnings were off the charts. Revenue extremely strong. Matter of fact, even some of the guidance looked unbelievable for the full year, 2023. So they are not missing anything. Now, the one thing that I would say is this. Margins are a little bit, the gross margins are a little bit off of what they were looking for. And there is some decent inventories, but you just can't deny these numbers. These numbers are phenomenal. and probably a little bit surprising, I think, to a lot of people, because these are the upper end in terms of some of the different companies that are within this stock, and they aren't cheap. I mean, you look at Tommy Hilfiger, you look at Calvin Klein, you look at a lot of these various names. This is the middle to the upper end of things as far as cost, and people are obviously out there spending. So I'll tell you what, it's a heck of a run that this stock is on today, and it's very, very impressive what they were able to put up this quarter.
It is, Pete, but here's one thing that I think is somewhat worrisome, and I'm not trying to be, Peter Falk from Colombo when I say there's just one more thing. But there is one more thing, and that is inventories were up 34%. Mm-hmm. So if your inventories are up, that means you got a lot of excess. Now, hopefully they move that and still make some profit. But the more of that you hold, the more you sort of depress the value of all the other stuff you've got, because you got to pump that stuff out on sale to move it. And like I say, I don't think that's so great. All right, let's take a look, Pete, at Oscar. This is Oscar Health, OSCR, up huge today. They're basically up huge because they're moving a guy who was an advisor to them and who was formerly with, what is it? Was it
Aetna
Health, Pete? Mm-hmm. He was with Aetna, and now he's coming over to them, probably seeing a lot more upside for this stock at this point. It's up 75% today.
At one point, John, it was up 85%. I mean, this stock is absolutely on fire. And so what they've done is, to your point, they've replaced who's really in charge. The founders are going to move it to the side, and they're going to grab this gentleman who ran Aetna. Bertoni is his name. He did an amazing job. He orchestrated the sale of that company to CVS, $70 billion to, amongst friends, who cares? It's somewhere close to $70 billion, John. But unbelievable. And the excitement level of what people are seeing right now, what we're seeing right now happening in this stock. Another one where, look at the volume. I mean, the volume says it all. This thing is absolutely up into the upside. I don't know if you want to chase it or not, but certainly with who they've got running it as a CEO, if he does anything close to what they did at Aetna, and that's what people's presumption is, this stock actually, even on a big move like this, probably has more room to the upside.
Yeah, 58 million shares versus a little over 1 million shares on a normal day, Pete. So, yeah, that's a lot of volume. There's a lot of people betting the same way Pete is. That even though it's up 75%, keep in mind when you're in the single digits and you move 20%, 50%, 70%, it's not the same as a double-digit stock like a $58 stock going up that much. Doesn't take nearly the same amount of drive. And I didn't bother to check the short interest here, Pete, but obviously there could be some shorts that are getting carved up pretty good too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, folks, we have put the unusual option activity on hold for the Rebel's Edge. If you would like to see some of that, well, we'd encourage you to go over to Market Rebellion to see it. No, it's not a bait and switch. We are just pulling the unusual option activity from this particular program. And you know where it is. It's over on Market Rebellion. So if you'd care to check it out, please do. Pete and I'm sure we'll be back on television. I think I'm back in New York, Pete, with Liz Clayman right after Easter, and then Charles Payne after that. So we'll find some areas to give you unusual option activity, or you can join us for some of our free webinars when we talk about exactly that.
Yeah. Well, John, let's jump to some of the sports, man. I mean, I'm excited about where we are right now. We teased a little bit about this yesterday, but how about this? The men's Frozen Four. Now, I find it really intriguing, the idea that the men's Frozen Four, which is the Minnesota Golden Gophers, they're going up against Boston University. This is all on April 6th. So that's going to be the early game. Then you've got Michigan going against Quinnipiac, who's been a power forever. And Michigan has been absolutely dominant in hockey. So the right teams are there. I think this group of four might be the best group of four that's ever been in the Frozen Four, to be honest with you. I think this is one of the best Gopher hockey teams that I've seen in a really long time, John, for the University of Minnesota. And then the championship, the national championship, April 8th. It's all happening here in Tampa. John, I'm going to be there, by the way. I've already talked to a lot of the guys. I'm going there. I mean, so what the hell? I mean, it's right up the road here. So I'm going to be heading there. But here's the amazing thing. Tampa is an absolute, now I don't know if this particular stat is right or not, but on Twitter told me yesterday, John, there are more hockey rinks in Tampa than there are in Boston. Now, I'm not positive that that's right, but you know what? The way these people love their hockey here, and let's be honest, the west coast of Florida, these are people from Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, and Michigan, and Indiana, and Ohio, and a lot of big hockey areas. So there's a lot of people down here. All you got to do is look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. They had the #1 attendance last year in the NHL. This year, they're running at #3 because Montreal's having a monster year, and they actually sell more tickets than they have seats, John, which is always interesting. But standing room, right? I mean, so it just shows you that people are just absolutely freaks about hockey. It's been a great year. It's been a lot of fun. And, you know, at the NHL level, incredible. But I don't know. Do you remember some of those Golden Gopher hockey teams, John? I mean, we've had a lot of historic teams. We've had some great coaches, Herb Brooks, some of these guys. Sure has been a lot of fun. I think this is going to be a great Frozen Four.
You know what's really surprising, Pete, is how good the Big Ten has become. Because I remember, just like you do, when it was Minnesota and Wisconsin, and then and they basically had to play WCHA, I think, Pete. Mm-hmm. Now you've got into that Elite Eight, you had Ohio State, Michigan, and Minnesota all in there. I mean, imagine that. And then obviously, like you said, Michigan and Minnesota make it to the Frozen Four. Mm-hmm. And Quinnipiac, like you said, they've won this thing, mm-hmm. and they're a little school in upstate New York, but they're damn good hockey players. You know, I think this could really be something that people, you know, have loved hockey all over the country, like you say, even down there where there's no ice except in your drink. And I think this is a pretty cool thing. So it'll be great. You got to go into the booth, Pete, with ESPN or whoever's covering this. You got to go into the booth. That would be classic.
That might be fun. It is ESPN. I believe it's ESPN2, and then I think they flip around to different ESPNs as it goes on. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it. I'll be going with another young man who's actually played in a Frozen Four himself. So that should be a lot of fun. All right, John, second one. Now, this is going to be fun. You and I are just going to go back and forth with a little ping pong here. We've done it before, and we're getting closer, so we're going to do it again because it's getting closer to that time of year. How about a mock draft, John? So the #1 team right now is the Carolina Panthers, who had moved up in a monster trade with your Chicago Bears, and it was a huge trade, and I think they got fleeced. But in any case, they still get the #1 pick out of this deal unless they trade out of it for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know who they want, John, but I'm just going off of previous history and the owner and him kind of getting in the way of things, maybe, which is a possibility. I don't know if they're going to take who they think he's going to take, but who do you have maybe going as that first pick? Most people say it's Bryce Young. Now, let's just say this. Bryce Young, about 5'10" and about 185, 190 pounds. So there's a lot of folks out there that are wondering whether or not he should be the first pick. And when you look at his pro day, it didn't look all that great. So you tell me, is he still the first pick? Is that who they want, or are they going to take a different quarterback?
I think it's Bryce Young, Pete. And I think it's him because of his bona fides, as they like to say, meaning that, you know, this kid certainly played his backside off in college. And so it should never be all about your pro day. Right. Just like, you know, the kid from Georgia, people were saying he couldn't throw deep, and at the pro day, he did throw deep.
Look pretty
so
good.
Does that mean that he should jump over these guys, the two guys that are supposed to go 1 and 2? Not necessarily, but the kid is a freaking phenom down there at Georgia. and he's already a full-grown man. I mean, he's 24, going on 25 years old. The Georgia boy.
Here's who I think. I'm going to disrupt the whole thing, and here's why. I think C.J. Stroud is the first pick in the draft. Here's just one reason why, John. So on the field, which is what matters, what you were just talking about, this guy had in 2 years, he's only been there 2 years. In 2 years, he threw 75 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Now, I tell you what, if I can find a guy who's not throwing interceptions and he's really productive with his touchdowns and he's big and he's strong and he's fast, if I want to get a guy that I think can step in right now, and if they've got other pieces to the puzzle, hopefully he's got an offensive line. But if not, he's very athletic. He's a lot like Fields. They're the same school, Ohio State. I like him. So let's jump to Houston now, John. They've got the second pick. Who do you think Houston takes with the second pick? Maybe it's Stroud for you.
Yeah, they have. Houston has had nothing ever since J.J. Watt left.
Yeah,
they've got nothing. No. And I would say, and so do you take that, one of the rush ends, Pete, like that kid Anderson, or who is your pick for that spot?
So they don't have a quarterback. Mills is terrible. Everybody they've got to go with a quarterback, John.
Do they trade the spot and take defensive player?
Well, it's a good call, but I don't think
2 spots, let somebody else take the guy and then trade for the quarterback.
There could be some trades. I think those trades would make sense, but I think if Houston has to stay there for now, let's just say they do, I actually think they're going to go to Will Levis. And the reason I think so, John, is he's another kid who's big, he's strong, he's productive as hell. A lot of guys think he's a lot like Ben Roethlisberger because he's got great size and he's got a huge arm. I mean, a massive arm. So I kind of think they're going to disrupt things because everybody's wondering, well, where does Richardson go? Where does this guy go? Where does that guy? We've got a lot of quarterbacks out there. I think that they go with Will Levis at that pick for Houston. Now, that's if Will is still there, because I'll tell you what, I think between he and Stroud, Carolina's going to be going back and forth, but I think Stroud goes before him. So the next one is Arizona. Who do you think at Arizona really fits right now, John? Because they already put a lot of money into their quarterback, so that's the one team that probably doesn't go with it.
This one's a tough one, Pete, because like I say, I am not that convinced that you want to let the quarterback learn if like Will, he got to throw the rock a lot. And like you say, he has a huge arm, and he showed it at Kentucky. He showed it at the pro day and all that kind of stuff. He's got the gun. But as far as for Arizona, I'm stymied. If I were them again, I'm going to trade down if I can, rather than taking that pick.
All right. Well, I think this is where Will Anderson goes. And the reason I say that is J.J. Watt is gone. He's been gone. And then you take a look at, they took Zach Allen, who ended up getting that monster contract to go to Denver, who was a defensive end that they were grooming. So they need somebody on the outside to come in and get after quarterbacks. I think that's where Will Anderson goes. People don't realize how big that kid is, John. How big, how strong, how fast, how productive. I mean, the guy had an amazing – a lot of people actually compare him to Von Miller. The only difference is he's a hell of a lot bigger. And so he's as fast, if not faster. He's bigger. And when you look what he's done with sacks over the last couple of years, there's a reason why Will Anderson is looked upon as one of the great outside rushers in this draft and probably in the last couple drafts. Next one, Arizona. The Colts, excuse me, Indianapolis. So you've got the Colts, John. Who do the Colts go with? Because they don't have a quarterback either. So, and Bryce Young for you and I is still maybe on the block, or Richardson or whoever. So who do you think goes here?
I think that one is a no-brainer, Pete. I think it's Richardson.
Okay.
And, we talked about how well he did at the pro day. And we also said, you and I said, yeah, but he was just over 50% completions and he threw a lot of picks. But nonetheless, he is a raw talent.
He
And, he is a big, strong kid. So, could he fit in that system? I think so. I don't think they'd go down to Tyree Wilson, Pete, the DN from Texas Tech. And I don't think they go for running back. So I think they sort of have to go for Robinson. What do you think?
I like him. I think Richardson is one of the great quarterbacks in the draft. However, that being said, he throws interceptions. He's about a 53% completion guy. He's the lowest rated quarterback in terms of ratings of their abilities or whatever, of the top 5. He's big. He's fast. I'll tell you what, I don't know why he couldn't even be, maybe he's not really a quarterback, John. Maybe Richardson at some point in his NFL career will turn over and be like a Tebow type guy who's damn near big enough, because he's big enough. We know that. We know how fast he is. He might even switch positions, in my opinion, because he doesn't take care of the football the way you need to. So here's where I think maybe Bryce Young steps in. And is it the right pick? I don't know. But if he's on the board, they got to take him. So I think that's what they would do. The last one is Seattle. Now, Seattle's got a quarterback already, but he's old. He's getting older, and they signed him to like 2 or 3 years.
I was going to say, didn't they just give him a big check, Pete?
They did. They gave him a nice check for the next 2 or 3 years. So in my mind, John, I think that this is a great spot to get a quarterback that you don't have to pay to, you're waiting, you're trying to get him going. And Geno is sort of his tutor to try to bring him along or whatever. So maybe that works out. I'm going with Hendon Hooker. Now, he's the kid from Tennessee. Let's just look at this, John. He's 70% completion. That's number 1 of all college quarterbacks. Number 1, not even close. He threw 27 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. So this kid has got all the numbers that you'd want. I think he's really talented. He's a transfer guy. He's done a lot of things in his career. I like a lot about what he brings to the table. I think he actually would be the right guy because he sits behind Geno. He learns from him. Geno goes off into the sunset in 2 or 3 years, and all of a sudden you've got a great quarterback that you still have on a rookie salary, and it gives you a lot of room to be able to maneuver over the next few years. So I kind of like that spot for Hooker. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, there's still that guy, Pete, that that I loved. And, his teammate, I think, went to Philly a year ago, but that Jalen Carter.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's Jalen Carter, the D lineman from Georgia. I mean, they are putting out D linemen that are big and mean and just clog up the middle of the field. So that's a tough guy. If you're the GM drafting, that's a tough guy to pass over unless you're really certain. And I don't disagree with you about the Tennessee quarterback, Pete. And we both know that you can recover from the injury that he got. But I haven't seen him work out. So if his workouts are strong, that's your guy. If his workouts are, then I think you go with Carter.
And by the way, nothing wrong with taking Carter because to your point, John, he's another Georgia defensive lineman who, he's like 6'4" and about 325 and built like a Greek god, I mean, these guys are unbelievable. Every year they get a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, and somehow Georgia just keeps lining them up every single year. And it's going to be fun. It's a lot of fun. And we're going to probably change this, but we're going to revisit this in a while where we do 5 picks again. And I'll bet you we've got different picks in about a month. So it should be a lot of fun, John.
Well, folks, thank you for joining us. We will be back with another Rebel's Edge tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join us then. And until then, have a great day, everybody.